We are watching live video coming to us from the White House on day 21 of a U.S. government shutdown. So the president hosting a lunch for Republican senators still at a standstill with Democrats on a bill that would get the government up and running. Here's some of his remarks from just a moment ago. Watch.
And they are extreme. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. They're extreme. And you know what? We had a landslide election. We won the popular vote by a lot. We won the swing states, all 7. Remember, they said, oh, if Trump could get 3 swing states, he'd be... And, well, I didn't get 3, I got 7. We got all 7 by a lot, by record numbers. We won the Electoral College, 312 votes. They said it's very hard for a Republican. It's harder for a Republican, although now I think we've swapped it. I think it's now harder for a Democrat, because if you see what we've done with the Hispanics, with the black workers and black men, and recently a poll came out with black men and women were doing so well. You know, they want security. They don't want to have their city destroyed. Women in Chicago, beautiful black women walking around with red MAGA hats because they don't want to be mugged and shot and everything else. And then you see a Democrat get up and tell you how safe it is in Chicago. You know, they've had, in a fairly short period of time, 4,000 murders. This is over a short period of time. 4,000 murders. And they had a holiday where they had 28.
All right, so there's a lot to unpack there as those Republican senators listen to the president. We have standing by in Capitol Hill CBS News congressional reporter Taurean. But first, let's go live to the White House and CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang starting off our team coverage this hour. What else did the president have to say specifically about that shutdown?
Well, Reed, the president hasn't said much about the shutdown except laying the blame squarely at the Democrats' feet. He made that very clear. He said Chuck Schumer, who I've known for a long time, and the radical left Democrats are holding the entire federal government hostage to appease the extremists in their party. And they are extreme. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. That's what you heard at the top there. And really, so far, and by the way, he is still going, he has not elaborated on the fact that the federal government is shut down. But this really falls in line, Reed, with the president's thinking on this, with the administration's view on this, which is that they say this is all the Democrats' fault because they could simply vote for a clean resolution to reopen the government and then have conversations about health care subsidies. That's how they want this to play out. Clearly, there is no urgency for the Republicans to give in to the Democrats because at this point, the president really believes that he has the winning message here, which is that Democrats could easily turn the switch back on, get the money flowing again, but they are choosing not to. Of course, Democrats say in order to do that, they need some kind of assurances. They want a deal that those health care subsidies will be extended, Reed.
Yeah, and in the meantime, real people are hurting. You know, just last week here on CBS News 24/7, we heard from a couple of military mothers who said they don't care, Democrat, Republican. They just want both sides in the same room to talk this out. Is there any indication that the president will meet with Democrats?
Well, right now, Republicans aren't even meeting with Democrats on Capitol Hill. The leadership have not been in formal talks about trying to get a deal done. And so the president certainly isn't going to be talking to Senate Democrats either. In fact, the White House has said that that is up to Republicans in the Senate to have those conversations. There is another strategy here, though. I mean, they could try to persuade some more moderate Democrats to vote with Republicans, but as far as we know, the president hasn't reached out directly to any of those Democrats to see if they would be willing to do that. Of course, we know 3 already have switched to the other side. But in terms of those military families, it is important to point out the administration has taken steps and is making efforts to try to pay those service members, even though there is a shutdown going on, because as you mentioned, it's so important to so many families, including those brave men and women in uniform.
So while the president continues his remarks to Senate Republicans there at the White House, we thank you, Weijia Jiang. We know you've got a lot more to listen in on. Have a great day. All right, so from the White House with Weijia to Capitol Hill and Taurean Small. Taurean, any indication that today's meetings could signal even a shift in strategy?
Well, Reed, we'll see. I think what we're looking out for is maybe a shift in messaging around this. The White House and Senate leadership, as well as rank and file members when it comes to Republicans, have been firmly in line with each other on laying the blame of the shutdown solely at the feet of Democrats. It'll be curious to see whether or not they'll come out of this looking at a new strategy, potentially at standalone bills where they could find bipartisan compromise, because we're just 14 days away from touching the longest government shutdown in U.S. history, which happened to fall under Donald Trump's first term in office. As we know now, Majority Leader John Thune is mulling over the idea of paying who he's calling expected workers, so folks who are being forced to work without receiving pay currently, not furloughed workers. And that's something that is against what Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader in the House, is saying Democrats want to do. He's saying that he doesn't want Republicans to be the ones to pick and choose who gets paid during this government shutdown. And ultimately, they're looking for a conversation to happen, even though that's not necessarily happening at the negotiating table. One last thing I want to note on, Reed, although Republicans are meeting with the president at the White House, Senate Republicans, one notably wasn't invited. That's Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. He has been the sole Republican to vote against the 11th continuing resolutions that went to the Senate floor. He does not appear to be in good graces with the president. That's likely to explain why he will be absent from that meeting.
All right. So in the spirit of so many furloughed federal workers who are doing their jobs without a paycheck, I have to ask on their behalf, are there any other plans maybe to do this more piecemeal or do smaller bills, put those on the table to try like one at a time to get some funding through those sectors?
Yeah, that's certainly an idea. It's just a matter of whether or not there will be bipartisan appetite for that across the board. House Speaker Mike Johnson said that he would be open to calling back into session his members if the Senate does devise a plan to pass a standalone bill, after for weeks saying that he was against that idea. So this is a notable about face from him. But again, Leader Jeffries says that he doesn't want Republicans to be the one to choose who gets paid and who doesn't. If there is legislation out there that would grant compensation to folks, federal workers and troops, he believes all, including those furloughed, should be a part of that conversation. And then we also know that the Trump administration has moved forward with moving about $80 billion in unobligated research and development funds from the Pentagon to paying the troops. The question is the legality of that. Is Congress who holds the power of the purse? So whether or not that could be challenged is a question, but still there are alternatives, because it appears both sides are under the mindset that this could continue and be drawn out, this shutdown, for some time, Reed.
We continue counting the days. Taurean Small, thank you so much for that.